Good day, everyone. We are the group 3 discussing the short story. So what is the short story? So the short story is one of the oldest types of literature and has existed in the form of legends, mythic tales, folk tales, fairy tales, tall tales, fables, and anecdotes in various ancient communities around the world. So now, let us indulge ourselves with different short stories with the different authors.
The first short story is Arabu by James Joyce. Before we tackle about the short story, let us first know the author's background. James Joyce, known as James Augustine Aloysius Joyce, is an Irish modernist writer born on February 2, 1882 in Dublin, Ireland. He is the eldest of 10 children in a Catholic family. So, pagka-anak ni James Joyce, their family is in middle class. Pero after na anak si James Joyce, nga na, murag na pobre bitaw sila, murag na force sila mag-move sa Dublin, Ireland. And he married Nora Bernacle in 1931. They had 2 children named Lucia and George. James Joyce passed away on January 13, 1941 in Zurich, Switzerland. Namatay si James Joyce due to complications related to a perforated ulcer. When we say perforated ulcer, there's a hole in the stomach. Nga ito bitang stomach na si Jay murag kanang buhok diri sa kilid nga murag sakit dyan sa kadyo. And James Joyce also experienced significant eye troubles throughout his life, and which ultimately led to blindness. And one of the hidden facts about him is that he was deeply interested in languages and could reportedly speak several, including Italian, Norwegian, and French. The contribution of James Joyce to literature. James Joyce's contribution to literature has significant and lasting impact. So when you say significant and lasting impact, means dako jud siya og kanang kuan sa tao. Despite sa iyang mga na-face nga controversies and censorship due to explicit content, and in some of his works, James Joyce influenced modern literature profound. Kani siya sa iyang work na Ulysses, diri siya murag naay controversy sa censorship na problems. When we say censorship problems, sa iyang bitaw nga mga story is kanang mo storya siya nga may mga masturbation, kanang murag laing kaadyo, murag sagwa. And his legacy continues to impact writers and scholars. He is widely regarded as one of the most important and innovative authors of the 20th century due to his groundbreaking narrative techniques, stream of consciousness, style, and the experimental nature of his work, like Ulysses, which pushed the boundaries of conventional storytelling and profoundly influenced the development of modern literature. So let's proceed to the James Joyce most notable works, including The Manners, a portrait of the artist as a young man, Ulysses, and Finnegan's Wake. Finnegan's Wake, I could pronounce. So first we have Manners. Manners is James Joyce's first major work published in 1914. Manners is a collection of short stories depicting the lives of Dublin's middle-class citizens. And also, each story offers a glimpse into the complicities of every Joyce, keen observation and attention to detail. And actually, there are 15 short stories that make up the Bloodliners. And one of those stories is entitled Arabe, which will be discussed by Ezra, the plan of the story later. And the second one, we have a portrait of the artist as a young man. It is a semi-autobiographical novel published in 1916. And the third one, we have Ulysses. Ulysses is published in 1922 and it is considered as one of the greatest novels of the 20th century. And the fourth one is Finnegan's Wake. Finnegan's Wake is James Joyce's final major work published in 1938. Now let's proceed to the story of Arabe. As what I said earlier, Arabe is a short story that is part of James Joyce's broader exploration of the human condition in his collection Bloodliners, which I've discussed kanina, published in 1914. And for us to know what the story is all about, let's first know the characters, settings to be followed by the plot, themes, and symbolisms. So, for the settings, we have North Richmond Street. The story begins in a quiet, somewhat decaying neighborhood. North Richmond Street symbolizes the mundane and restrictive environment in which the protagonist resides. And the second one is the boys' house. The young boys' house is described as a place where routine and religious influences dominate. The religious atmosphere, marked by the fallen priest, adds to the overall sense of disillusionment and decay. And the third one, we have the Mangan's house. The neighbor's house, or particular to Mangan's sister, becomes a focal point for the young boy romantic fantasies. Mangan's house represents the idealized world that the young boy envisions, setting the stage for his infatuation and aspirations. And the last one, we have the Arabi Bazaar. The bazaar is a central setting and the culmination of the young boy's dreams. Initially envisioned as a mystical place, the bazaar ultimately becomes a stark and disappointing reality. The contrast between the young boy's romanticized expectation and the harshness of this bazaar settings underscores the theme of the conflict between idealism and reality. So kaning mga settings ka ang giingon is mas nagawaan nato sa plot na iingon niya i-discuss ni Ezra. Let's move on to the characters. The first character is the narrator or the boy in the story. The narrator is a young boy of unspecified age kanang wala sa mention of kinsa or ijaman. And second is Mangan. Mangan is the narrator's friend, and the Mangan's sister. Mangan's sister is the sibling of the narrator's friend. Si Mangan's sister maling suon Mangan. And then the narrator's family sa narrator is ang uncle o ang aunt ni Jack. And apil ko dili ang iyang friends katong mga schoolboys sa Catholic nga school. And apil ko tong the priest na dimension nga sa unatan sa ilang balay. And si Mrs. Mercer, the phone broker
or fake Catholicism. The priest's belongings suggest his moral weaknesses, how he was inclined to read the works of crimes and romance, which is not suitable for the priest. And the third one, we have the coming of age. The story is told through an adult perspective. One may find the language used to explain the youthful experiences of a grown man. It is elaborated from the protagonist's behavior towards his friends and family. He no longer enjoys katong ingon Ezra ngayon sa plot na si narrator is di naganahan ng duwa kauban niyang friends before. Then also, yun na nag-abot na sa point kaya di na po siya ganahan nga o di na ka siya po katawa sa joke sa iyang uncle unlike before. Then rather, he builds up a defiant personality towards them. Also, he develops a crush on the friend's sister katong iyang friend na si Mangga nila nakakanta sila doon. And he starts praising her physical appearance. This tells about that budding sexuality of the narrator. So then, moreover, his desire to escape from his boredom and dull life also suggests his mature behavior. And let's proceed to the three symbolisms. Pwede si John Mati, dagan siya pwede na symbolisms, pero nag-pick na ko ito. And these are blindness, darkness, and brown. So, first is brown. Kung mabasa din mo sa story mismo, or sa piece, the color brown is used multiple times in the story. The brown color emphasizes the dullness of Dublin. The narrator described those things brown, which appear also to him dull. And also, James Joyce portrays House as brown also, and even Mangan's sister as a brown clad figure to represent the dull, ordinary life. And second one is blindness. The word blind is also used repeatedly in the story. It symbolizes the narrator's isolation. The narrator's house is situated at the blind end, which suggests its lonesomeness from the other's houses. We discussed naman as Ralena. And also, it foreshadows the narrator's isolation from his friends and routine life. Moreover, the narrator is figuratively blinded by the information of Mangan's sister. This makes him a secluded person. Similarly, he gets blinded to the true concept of love and his mistaken beliefs. Katong hijab na realize sa setting or sa place ng Arabic market. And the last one, we have darkness. James Joyce, or the author of the short story Arabe, has used a great deal of light and darkness in the story. At first, darkness reveals the narrator's dull life, and in the end of the story, the very darkness becomes the understanding of the narrator's epiphany. When the lights turn off at the Arabis market, the young boy started to stare at the darkness, and at that time he realized the delusions and vain motives of impressing Mangan's sister. So, napuna sa plot kay na atong niadto si narrator or atong young boy sa Arabic market. Di ba natoy ko na part ng off of tanang light sa Arabic market. And dito niya na-realize na iyang layo ra iyang ginuna layo ra ang nasa Arabic market sa iyang ginuna. So that's all.
So the next writer would be Edgar Allan Poe. So Edgar Allan Poe's life was marked by both literary success and personal challenges. So he was born on January 19, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts, U.S. So he is an American short story writer financial struggles throughout their marriage. So despite his personal hardships, Paul's literary career flourished. So he became an editor on various publications and has gained recognition for his short stories and poetry, including the Fall of the House of Usher and the Telltale Heart. So we all know that Edgar Allan Poe made a several significant contribution in the literature, especially when it comes to short story genre, detective fiction, the macabre and gothic themes, and his poetry. So both contributions to the mystery and horror genres, especially with his detective fiction tales featuring C. Augustus Dupin, were groundbreaking. However, he struggled with alcoholism, which is the bane in his life, and addicted to the misuse of alcohol. And so he experienced periods of emotional instability. So tragically, Poe's life was cut short when he died under mysterious circumstances on October 7, 1849 in Baltimore, Maryland. So the exact cause of his death remains uncertain, and various theories, including the alcohol poisoning and illness, have been proposed. But despite his short life and troubled personal circumstances, Edgar Allan Poe's literary legacy has endured, and he is celebrated as a master of the macabre and gothic fiction. So, possibly, what is the contribution that what is the inspiration, or what influenced Edgar Allan Poe to write that dark themes? So, Edgar Allan Poe's inclinations toward writing the macabre and gothic fiction theme start from a combination of his personal life, personal experiences, the literary traditions, philosophical ideas, and the cultural climate of his time. These influences converge to shape his unique and enduring contributions to the genre. So, one of Edgar Allan Poe's famous short stories entitled The Telltale Heart, which will be discussed by Miss Emily.
The story, The Telltale Heart, is a short story by American writer Edgar Allan Poe, and it was published on 1843. It is related by an narrator and divorce between the reader of the narrator's sanity while simultaneously describing a murder the narrator committed. The genres of this story are horror and gothic literature. Now let me introduce to you the characters of the story. So here are the characters in the story that Telltale Heart. First is the narrator. So whenever you get the name of the narrator, him or the old man. So I'm assuming that the narrator is a caretaker, a servant, or a caregiver, since these two characters are in the same home or they are living together. So it is not stated in the story kung blood-related ba sila. So let's also talk about the old man. So he doesn't give any line in the story. Now, the narrator claims to love this guy. He said, he was never meant to me, I don't want his money, and it was just his eye, the word eye, that freaks the narrator out. So, what the narrator is probably describing is a cataract, which the narrator called it a vulture eye. Now let's move to the settings. The old man's house and the old man's room. So this is where the murder takes place. Now let's delve into the story's So it all started with an unnamed narrator who opens the story by addressing the reader and claiming that he is nervous and not mad. He says that he is going to tell a story in which he will defend his sanity, yet confess to having killed the old man. His motivation was neither passion nor desire for money, but rather a fear of a man's pale blue eye. Again, he insists that he is not crazy because his measured actions are not those of a madman. Every night, he went into the old man's apartment and secretly observed the old man sleeping. And in the morning, he will behave as if everything were normal. So after a week of this activity, the narrator decides somewhat randomly that it is the time actually to kill the old man. So when the narrator arrives late in the 8th night, though the old man wakes up and cries out, the narrator remains still, stalking the old man as he sits awake and frightened. The narrator understands how frightened the old man is, having also experienced the lonely terrors of the night. Soon, the narrator hears a dull pounding that he interprets as a old man's terrified heartbeat. Worried that a neighbor might hear the loud thumping, he attacks and kills the old man. He then dismembers the body and hides the pieces below the floorboards in the bedroom. So he is careful not to leave even a drop of blood on the floor. So as he finishes his job, he hears a knock on the street door. The policemen have arrived, having been called by the neighbor who heard the old man shriek. So the narrator is careful to appear normal. He leads the officers all over the house without acting suspiciously, and even brings them into the old man's bedroom to sit down and talk. The policeman did not suspect anything, so the narrator is comfortable, not until he hears a low sound. He recognizes the low sound as the old man's heartbeat coming from beneath the floorboard. He panics, believing that the policeman might hear the sound and know his guilt. Very angry at the idea that they are mocking his agony, he confesses to the crime and shrieks at the men to rip up the floorboards. So these are the themes of the story, the tale part. One of the themes is obsession. The theme of obsession is central to the story as the narrator becomes fixated on the old man's eye. This obsession drives him to carefully plan and execute the murder. Next is the power of fear. The power of fear is a driving force in the story. The narrator's overwhelming fear of the man's eye leads to his descent into madness. Next is madness and sanity. Both delves into the theme of madness and sanity as the narrator's obsession and fear lead him to lose touch with reality. The erratic behavior, the intense paranoia, and the meticulous planning of the murder all point to a mind that is unraveling. Guilt and conscience. The narrator experiences an overwhelming sense of guilt after committing the murder. Despite his attempts to convince himself that he is not insane, his guilt and conscience manifest in the form of the beating heart, which the narrator hears even after the murder. It symbolizes the nagging reminder of his wrongdoing and highlights how guilt can consume a person's conscience. Next is the isolation and loneliness. The narrator's isolation and loneliness contribute to his deteriorating mental state. He cuts himself off from the outside world and becomes consumed by his own thoughts and obsessions. Unreliable narrator. The narrator's mental state is questionable, and his perceptions and interpretation of events are distorted. narrator's account. And last is the symbolism of heart. The symbolism of the heart represents the narrator's guilt and inner turmoil. The sound of the old man's heartbeat grows louder in the narrator's mind, symbolizing his increasing guilt and paranoia. The beating heart serves as a constant reminder of the narrator's crime, emphasizing the inescapable nature of conscience. So overall, these themes and the telltale heart create to serve a dark and chilling atmosphere, exploring the depth of human psyche and the consequences of unchecked obsessions and fear.
So, proceeding to the symbolism of the short story. So, when we say symbolism, it is a symbol that represents the ideas or the qualities. So, now the symbolism of the telltale heart. So, there are 7 symbolisms. First one is the vulture eye. So, the vulture eye is described as the old man's eye, and the narrator's obsession and irrational fear, which becomes the focal point of the narrator's fixation, leading to the murder. It is also represents the distorted lens through which the narrator's views of the old man, highlighting the destructive power of unchecked obsession. The second one is the heartbeat. So the sound of the old man's heartbeat, which the narrator believes persists even after the murder, symbolizes the narrator's guilty conscience. So the increasingly loud and persistent heartbeat becomes a manifestation of the psychological burden of the crime. It also symbolizes the inescapable presence of guilt and the deteriorating mental state of the narrator. So the third one is the lantern light. So ang lantern light symbolizes siya as illumination and revelation that exposes the vulture eye and metaphorically the narrator's own guilt. It is also a symbol of truth and the inevitability of revealing hidden darkness. The fourth one is the old man's room. So the old man's room is described as dark and ominous, which serves as a symbolic representation of the inner recesses of the narrator's mind. So it becomes a physical manifestation of the narrator's disturbed psyche or kanang psyche mind sa narrator. So the murder that takes place within it is also a metaphor for the violence that can occur within the depths of the human mind. So next is the watch. The watch symbolizes the inexorable passage of time. Ang kaning inexorable time is meaning kanang dilis na stop bitaw or dilis na panag-prevention nila. So the passage of time and the narrator's growing anxiety. So time becomes an inescapable force, taking away and contributing to the narrator's heightened sense of urgency and paranoia. So this second to the last is the unreliable narrator. So the narrator's unreliability itself serves as a symbol because it is presented from the perspective of an individual who insists on their sanity while exhibiting clear signs of madness. It also symbolizes the ambiguity of truth and the complexity of the human mind, challenging the reader to question the narrator's version of events. So the last one is the floorboards. Ang kaning floorboards, mo ni siya ang hiding place sa katong dismembered body parts of the old man. So it symbolizes the attempt to bury the guilt and consequences of the crime. However, the sound of the heartbeat reveals that the truth cannot be easily concealed, word guild resurfaces to haunt the narrator. So all in all, these symbols or symbolism collectively contribute to the psychological depth of the telltale heart, adding layers of meaning and interpretation to the narrative. So, Edgar Allan Poe's use of symbolism enhances the overall impact of the story, inviting readers to explore the darker corners of the human psyche or mind.
So before we share a story about a good man is hard to find, so first let's talk about the author, who is Mary Flannery O'Connor, also known as Flannery O'Connor. So please allow me to read her biography and her background. So Mary Flannery O'Connor was born on March 25, 1925 and died on August 3, 1964 at the age of 39 at Baldwin County Hospital. Was an American novelist, short story writer, and essayist. She wrote 2 novels and 31 short stories, as well as a number of reviews and commentaries. She was a Southern writer who often wrote in sardonic Southern Gothic style and relied heavily on regional settings and grotesque characters, often in violent situations. Her writing reflected her Roman Catholic faith and frequently examined questions of Catholicism's defined morality and ethics. Her posthumously compiled complete stories won the 1972 U.S. National Book Award for Fiction and has been the subject of enduring praise. O'Connor was a devout Catholic. From 1956 from 1964, she wrote more than 100 book reviews for 2 Catholic diocese and newspapers in Georgia, the Bulletin and the Southern Cross. By the summer of 1952, O'Connor was diagnosed with systematic lupus, as her father had been before her. She remained for the rest of her life on Andalusia. O'Connor lived for 12 years. After her diagnosis, 7 years longer than expected. She completed more than 2 dozen short stories and 2 novels while living with lupus. So imagine she's writing while she's having lupus. Her death was caused by complications from a new attack of lupus following surgery for injury fibroid. She was buried in Milledgeville, Georgia at Memory Hill Cemetery. A good man is hard to find. So, Southern Gothic short story first published in 1953 by author Flannery O'Connor. So there are characters in the story. First is the grandmother, who is a judgmental woman. Second is the misfit, an escaped serial killer, or he is a murderer. Next is Belly, doesn't listen to her mother about the misfit. John Wesley, a loud and obnoxious 8-year-old. So obnoxious means a brat boy, disrespectful like that. So June Starr, a rude and obnoxious little girl. Same also John Wesley. Then the mother, Red Sammy Botts, the owner of the tower. So settings, the grandmother's house, the road, the restaurant, the misfits hideout, the final scene in the woods. Many of us probably familiar with how painful family vacations can be, with hours of driving in cramped quarters and arguing about where to stop for lunch. Just be glad though that none of your family's road trips have turned out like the short story in Flannery O'Connor's A Good Man is Hard to Find. So, may I ask a question? So, for you, what is a good man? So, alright. So, a good man is hard to find. Belly, the head of Atlanta household, prefers to take his family on vacation to Florida. So, the grandmother or the mother of Belly prefers to go in Tennessee because she wants to visit her relatives there. And she warned for his son, Belly, that the misfit, the murderer, became Belly, the head of Atlanta household, prefers to take his family on a vacation to Florida. Bill's mother, known as the grandmother in the story, wants to go to East Tennessee because she wants to visit her relatives there. And also, she warns Belly, her son, that upon who the misfit has escaped from prison and is heading towards Florida. The family, including Belly, her grandson John Wesley, and her granddaughter June Starr, and her infant grandchild, tended to her by daughter-in-law, ignore her. So, daghang gisulti si grandmother ay yung mama about sa misfit ang katong criminal. Then, ignore ang iyang mga sulti sa iyang mga ina. After that, when to leave the next morning, so pagabuntag na, so then her mother kanang excited si John na kanabang muadto jud sa Tennessee. So she wear a nice dress and wear hat kay para daw na accident ikintahay kanang ingnon ag si John na a lady sa kanang tiguang naganiba. Then after that, kanang was sila hibaw, ilang mga anak sa Billy, ilang grandson, granddaughter na ang iyang mama naligidala na cat. Okay. So, ang iyang nga sa iyang cat is PTC. So, ang iyang cat through a basket between her legs not wanting to leave it home alone. Kay ganahan si Jaba na dalo niyang kiring kay mas mapaaw sa Java na inyong na bilhin sa ilaha. Then while traveling, so di ba, kung mag-travel ganita kay naman dyan ng mga storya, then ang grandmothers nagkwento po sa ilang palabang nagian. Then nagkwento po siya about her karang teenagers. Then uyab ko si siya o katong dihadi na uyab ni John ng Coca-Cola na or something na kada ba may trabaho sa Coca-Cola gani, then wako ni Diyos sultan, namatay daw ang laki, pero double ka. Then, after ato, kanang while traveling, ang iyang mga apo is kanang magbanhaba, there's respectful, di maminaw about ni sa grandmother, nga silang sa iyang panagsulti. Moto, mingon ang kanang grandmother na kami sa una, when parang bata pa sila, kanang dili sila yung mga disrespectful, lahira ko nun sa mga bata karon na ganang kung respeto nila, nana. Then, di ba kay after long traveling, makita mo dyan taog ka kay pagkaon kay gutom na. So, mi-stop sila sa the tower. At dito sila nag-encounter ni Red Sammy Butts and his wife na nervous pa sa Diyan na pang nakubaan si Diyan na naalagi ko si Misfit kasi ilan akong tindahan or ilang restaurant na kawagon. So dito sila, nangaon sila o kang may barbecue, kada may marabagdiha sila nag-eat for a lunch ibalik. Then, mauna to din. As the Red Sammy Butts, hingon dyan si Diyan na a good man is hard to find. So, mo na yung last words ni katong ni grandmother na ning-warn po si grandmother lagi ako lagi nga ni the misfit. So,
So, to continue the story, after nila nga nagkaon sa restaurant, then pag in the car, kanang the mother shared some something about the family nga. Ngayon siya, near pa rin nga, nasa siya old house. Then the mother asked to Bailey nga, pwede ba mag-visit? Then ingon si Bailey nga dili. Then she lies to the two children nga na dito is secret tunnel, which is, ang two children is, nahimo sila interested. So they, namunta na sila ni ilang father nga si Bailey if okay ra ba mag-visit. Then Bailey said yes. Then after that, the grandmother said the direction. Then the grandmother, after nga nakuha sila si drive, kanang nakauna-una ang grandmother nga wrong direction na siya nahatag ni Bailey. Then wala sa siya nagsulti ni Bailey nga wrong direction kay basig masuko lagi nga na. Then ang ilang nakuha nga direction is kanang hikmit, lapok, lubag-lubag. So after nga ito nga ilang ito encounter, ang ilang car is na-crush. Then, pag-crush nila sa car, dito nga naay isa ka car nga niabot. So, naay ang sasud sa car naay 3 man, which is ang katunggan misfit na dinong nga killer, then iyang friend na si Buckley and Hiram. So, moto, after nga to, gawas ang 3 men, ang misfit is wala si Jackie, so may t-shirt. Then, sila tolo is naay God nga ida. So, after ingat to, kanang nagsulti si Bailey nga kanang kuhan. Na-explain si John sila tabubilangan nung na-crush sila sa wood. Then, ningingon ang grandmother na, hala, familiar to ko sa ningon si John, you are the killer. Ningon si John sa the misfit. Then, after ingat na, nasuko si Bailey, kaya nga lagi, ingat ko ang isulti si John sa iyang mother, kaya di lagi si John to. Then, after ingat na, ang friend ni Bailey nga si Bobby o si Hiram, iyang utusan ni Bali ba nga, kanang waa si Bailey o ang katong ilang son nga si John Wesley, iat ko sa dark na lugar, dito sa pinaka-wood. Then, after ingat to, dito gipusil si Bailey o si John Wesley. Then, pagbalik nila dito sa wood, naigidang na t-shirt si Bailey o si Lily, which is ang t-shirt ni Bailey. Notoy, isuot po din the misfit. Then, after na to, isubo na po sa the misfit nga, waon na po ang wife, si June Star, ang usa ka children o ang baby. Then, gato na po nila sa wood, ikuha na po nila, ipusil na po nila. Then, after ingat to nga, nakadungog ang mother sa gunshot, hilang si Jack. Kung dyan, confess ang the misfit na di kuno si Jack killer. Yes, si Jack killer. Kaya ang pagkamatay kuno si Jack Papa, kuhaan kuno, namatay Jack Papa tungod sa sakit, which is di ni Jack ibuhan. Muro na lain ang the misfit nga, manong di, kuhaan na si Jack, killer si Jack, mismo si Jack, was si Jack ni right? Multiple job. Sa pinaulan ko ng story, ang grandmother is very judgmental. Iyang ipangpan sa kanang tao nga killer si Jack. So, moto, hapit na siya namatay, murag ang una-una sa kanang grandmother ba, na wag tang iyang pagka-judgmental, kaya tungod nagipad yun na si Jack. Ang iyang giingong sa the misfit is, you're a good man, which is, ingong si Jack, mabuutan ka, murag ang iyang una-una is nabalik, at tungod pat yun si Jack. Jack, after nga ito, nga hapit na si Jack at John, kanang ingon si Jack, ang last word ni Jack is, you're my son, which is indicate na ang the misfit is, ni Jack, son ni Jack. Ang the misfit is, dili jud si Jack killer. Nahimo ka si Jack killer, kay mao na may bituan sa tao, manang, ang isya na lamang kuan kay nahimo na si Jack killer Jack. Ang title ni Jack is The Good Man is Hard to Find, kay mo nila nga, lisod pangitaon ang taong buutan, kay bisan pag magbinutan ka, fully ang inyong pagkabuutan, dili jud nila makitaan. Mo na si Jack. So, the theme is a prophecy kay kuan, behavior that is different from what they say they believe, kay matod pa sa katong grandmother, ug unsay iyang ituhan mo ako. Then the action consequences of one's action, search for meaning and purposes in a chaotic world. Kaya kung saan ako imong nag-uhan, makamakot siya kanang kuan. Not to be self-righteousness kay ang grandmother ba dya is kanang kuan si Jack, kanang ara ka judgmental dya. Kato nang hapit na si Jack at John is ang ijang kuan, ang ijang morality kay naguna-una kay miingon na mo si Jack, you're my son, or ang ijang behavior of actions na kuan na tulong siya. Then ang symbolism is misfit, a criminal who encounters the family on their journey. The misfit represent the embodiment of evil and challenges the grandmother's superficial understanding of goodness and morality.
So moving on to the next writer, Shirley Jackson. So she is a literary trailblazer who knew how to mess with our minds in the most brilliant way possible. But before we dive into her mind-bending masterpiece, The Lottery, let's get to know first the woman behind the words. So she is an American author or an American English poet, a literary editor, and also a short story writer. And then she also contributes into the English literature. So she was born in 1916 and she lived in San Francisco together with her middle-class parents and until she was 16. And then by the time in 16 si Shirley Jackson, ang iyang parents og si Johnny moved sa Rochester, New York. And then actually her life was in trouble and she is having a hard time impressing her mother just because panawag din sila parang relationship with their mother kay ang iyang mother mo nag-follow ra kanunay or like nag-care kanunay about sa feminine beauty. Wherein it doesn't meet the standards of her mother. That's why kay ang galing mo si Shirley Jackson is a type of girl that is not a girl type or even not a proper girl that her mother isn't proud of. And then Shirley itself, wala ito nga her childhood experience affected her adulthood. So since she attended to Syracuse University, she became the editor of the humor magazine, wherein after katong tayo nga na ay poetry contest, nakadaw mo sa siya nga to, so she met her husband, mo to si Hyman. And then after graduation, they moved to Vermont, New York. And then she continued writing her masterpieces there. So Jackson's breakthrough came with her evocative and controversial short story, The Lottery, published in 1914, which thrust her into the literary spotlight. Mo na to particular in the realms of horror and the mystery. So, speaking of horror, di ba makainong jud lang nga, ang kaning horror is more on a supernatural, right? Anja, kanang, but in Shirley Jackson's genre, it talks about or it captures the society's corruption and even the real life struggles and even those outside characters that try to cope and less than in reality. So, ang naghatag sa mga readers of a backstage pass to the darker corners of the human psyche to the point that we're stepping into a world where the ordinary became extraordinary. Now, here's the tough part about Shirley Jackson is that, di ba namatay man siya pagka 1965, because she struggled with health issues about dealing with obesity and of course the smoking related problems. Although her impact on English literature is immense, wherein she wasn't just scaring us with ghosts, but she was also diving into the human side, questioning societal norms, and leaving a mark on the horror genre. So we have here the characters and the settings. The first one is here in characters. The first one is Tessie Hutchinson. So the central characters. And then si Mr. Summers is the official in charge of conducting the lottery. And then Mr. Graves is muna ang supporter sa lottery, and then together with old man Warner, and then the Hutchinson family mo itong part sa katong later on discuss natin sila dito. Then ang sa settings is where the lottery takes place, and then the homes of the townspeople were in mauna to ang katong kanang mahisog ako later on mga various villages sa katong in the town square. And then the wood wherein nahitabo ang atong traditional na lottery. And then the time of the day, somewhere that's the time na nahitabo ang lottery.
So moving on to the plot summary. First is let's dig down into the exposition. So the exposition is a town gathers for an annual lottery with an anonymous tradition. So the exposition starts. It was actually in January 27, 10 o'clock in the morning in a small town at the Center Plaza. For example, like sa inyong barangay, kung ipatawag mo pulong, like nga na, so ipalimar ka mo sa gym. So, first that gathers are the children. The children, composition of boys and girls, gather stone. And then, second to arrive are the girls, women, chit-chats, chattering about something, and then the boys. Tessie Hutchinson, who is the unlucky winner of the lottery, arrived late because she forgot that it is the annual lottery day. So, proceeding to the rising action, tensions escalate as the lottery selection unfolds, revealing the unsettling nature of the ritual. So, in rising action arrived Mr. Summers, who is the si John ang nag-conduct sa lottery, bringing the black box. Proceeding to the climax, shock sets in as the chosen person faces the violent fate, exposing or revealing the brutality of the tradition. So the climax, it starts with Mr. Summers draw the names that are in the box. So, ang sunod sa black box are the family names that would be drawn. So, nag-start na si Mr. Summers og draw, which is ang family na si Hutchinson ang nabunod. So, sa ilang family, members of the family, mag-start na po na sila bunot-bunot, which ang mabunot nila is paper with a blank mark and a paper na nasa dark circle nga symbolizes nga ikaw ang unlucky winner na makatawag sa. So, following action, the villagers proceed with the ritual, emphasizing the disturbing adherence to the tradition. So, diri na to nag-start nga si Tessie Hutchinson nakig-argue, which is it's unfair kuno nga ijang family ang nabunot sa black box nga mo jud mga tao, right? Like for example sa issue sa Kanyel karon, like ang uban bias, like for example nga kuan for example like mo dapig sila nga kuan Daniel Tibali nga wa nag-cheat ingan na dya proceeding nga if magawas to nga issue nga nag-cheat si Daniel, sila pa ang kung pinsang yung defend ni Daniel nga was dyan nag-cheat, mugawas na hinon nga sila ang muna mo backstab ni Daniel if mapagawas nga nag-cheat si Jack. So, ingani ang nahitabo sa the lottery, which is Tessie Hutchinson argues nga it's unfair nga ang ilang family ang nabunot, which is nga sa lain na tradition or nang sa lain pa nga annual lottery nga sila pa ang stone to death sa napili kay man sila. So parang nga sila ang ilang family na ang napili sa annual lottery, murag gawas sa iyong buot. So, nag-start na ang draw sa lottery, which is si Tessie Hutchinson ang sunod sa paper na ay black marks, so which means Tessie is the unlucky winner of the lottery. So Tessie Hutchinson, stoned to death. Ibato si siya o bato hantod mamatay si siya, which is wait. The lottery represent any actions, behavior, or idea that is passed down from one generation to the next generation, accepted and followed unquestioningly, no matter how illogical or bizarre or cruel. So mo to, namatay si Tessie Hutchinson tungod kay gipang bato ra si siya, which is tragic and cruel. Kay imagine, magkandak sa inyong barangay ingana, tas ikaw napili dyan, batuon ra ka for sacrifice, kay kanang people in the town believe that kanang if kanang one life nga kanang ilang i-offer kanang mag-bring og kanang daghang harvest sa ilang crops ingana. So let's proceed with the themes and symbolism. So themes, blind obedience to tradition, which is makita jud sa story if mubasa mo or mubasa jud mo sa story, makita jud tanan nga themes dito at kanang ilang i-offer kanang mag-bring og kanang daghang harvest sa ilang crops ingana. So let's proceed with the themes and symbolism. So themes, blind obedience to tradition, which is makita jud sa story if mubasa mo or mubasa jud mo sa story, makita jud tanan nga themes dito at blind obedience to tradition nga, which is ni follow sila sa tradition even though nga ang tradition nga ilang gi-follow, sacrifice a life, one person tungod daga sa gituuhan nila nga if patay sila po sa katao, sagana ang ilang harvest sa crops. So, the danger of group thinking, which is true kay ang danger nga ang kanang group na nag-surrounded Tessie leads her to death. So, societal hypocrisy. So, hypocrite kaadyo ang ilang traditions nga gituuhan wherein kanang aron ka hypocrite yung gadyo. Simple as that. Makita yung gadyo ni mga hypocrite sila, which is true gadyo kay kanang ipadadyo nila ang tradition and kanang sumusunod sa buot nila even though nga nalagi mamatay. So, randoms of violence. So, randomly naka-hurt sila o person tungod sa ilang belief about the tradition. So, symbolism. I have here three symbolism, which is the black box. The black box, or the old black box, which the villager used every year to draw the name of the unlucky winner of the lottery, which is rich in symbolism. Black is the color of death, of course, and the somber color of black emphasizes seriousness of the villager. So, in literary analysis, the black box symbolizes tradition and ritual. It represents the tradition and It represents the tradition and ritualistic nature of the lottery. Its color may symbolize the darkness and secrecy that surrounds the practice, wherein the box has been passed down from one generation through generations, highlighting the unquestioning adherence to custom, even when they are brutal and senseless. So, the lottery itself symbolizes a blind obedience to tradition, even when it results in harm and death. It serves as the commentary of the dangers of unquestioningly following costumes without understanding or challenging their underlying meaning. So, the stones. The stone symbolizes the death of Tessie Hutchinson, which is the stones were thrown to her till her last breath. So, to be honest, this lottery was tackled when we were under Ma'am Noemi Garces. And then, ever
since di jud siya familiar na ho, so katong na-assign ang lottery na mo, murag ang akong perspective or kanang nagtanaw ko nga, the lottery kanang ganing gambling nga na like CSO nga na gambling din. Pagkabasa na ho, dito na open ako may what the fuck, alain man din nga nila story. Kay, imagine, basta we're na-enlighten na nga kung huna about ano na story because it has dark humor.
Ernest Hemingway was born on July 21, 1899, and was found dead on July 2, 1961 of a self-inflicted gunshot to his head due to severe depression and bipolar disorder. Hemingway was the 20th century American literary author who was famous for his novels and short stories that often inspired by his own experiences, just like the story that heals like white elephants. Heals Like White Elephants is not the normal story where there is a beginning, middle, and end. Hemingway gave just enough information so that the readers could draw their own conclusion because he believed that the deeper meaning of a story should not be evident. It should shine through implicity. So, in the short story of Heals Like White Elephants, there's a girl named Jig. She's sitting on a table outside a train station with her American boyfriend waiting for a train to Madrid. So it was hot, so the man ordered some drinks while Jed looking at the countryside and says that the hills look like white elephants, to which the man responds that he never seen one. The man gets annoyed and asks Jade to stop acting as she is. But Jig claims that she was just amazed and having a good time. The man begins to talk about the operation and says that the operation is awfully simple, Jig, but Jig did not respond. So the man tried to tell her that he's going to be with her the whole time, and that it is the only way they could do to fix their problem that bothered them to be happy again. So the man's description of the operation implies that Jeg is pregnant, and he was trying to convince her to have an abortion.
So, ready now? This procedure, which is referred to as it throughout the story, is almost certainly an abortion. So obviously the girl having fallen pregnant with a man. However, it becomes clear that he wishes her to get rid of the baby, although she remained undecided. Growing tired of the man's attempt to sway her, she just demanded the man to stop talking.
So the theme in the story is the limit of language, choice, and gender roles. So in this story, the man and girl represent stereotypes of male and female roles. The male as active and the female as passive. Though the man claims that all he wanted was to make the girl happy, his decisions are ultimately guided by his own desires and choices. He wanted the girl to seek an abortion in order for him to maintain the freedom he enjoys. But he wants it to be her decision. For the man, it is not enough for her to do what he wants, but she must also want what he wants.
So, if you're familiar with iceberg theory or theory of omission told that a story should be like an iceberg. Only 10% is above the surface, with 90% hidden below the water. Heals Like White Elephants of Hemingway is an excellent example of this theory, which is the iceberg theory. In practice, this theory means that the true meaning of a story should never be stated directly. It should be hinted at least, or teased out and symbolized more than stated. So it's like you're kanang gihatagan ka og dish, gihatagan ka dish sa chef, ikaw na ang like you do the eating and the digesting. So okay, so let's proceed to the symbolisms. We have gathered 4 symbolisms which are white elephant, elephant in the room, railway station, and landscape. First, we're going to tackle the white elephant. So, according to Cambridge Dictionary, it is something that is expensive or that costs a lot of money to keep in good condition, but that has no useful purpose and it's no longer wanted. So, just like you're giving kanang hatagan kag mansion, but to upkeep the good condition, you have to pay the property tax or you need to have it clean kaya para long last ijang condition. So, but in reality, di ba nato need nga kanang mansion jud akong bayo kanang okay, it's not kanang need man, it's more like want. So, in the story, the American guy sees the pregnancy as white elephant gift since we can tell from his frequent and kanang falsely supportive nudges that he wanted the girl to get rid of the baby lagi. So, next is the elephant in the room. Elephant is in the room is an English expression and phrase to describe a situation or an issue that's pretty obvious or noticeable, but it's not being addressed or discussed. So, kato pang first sa Baji, di ba she blurted out nga, kalikradjib ingon nga ang heels like white elephant kay gusto ni nga light ra ang conversation nila sa guy, pwede sila moabot sa conversation nga ingat lagi nga sa abortion na. So just like the girl's pregnancy, it's not a gift that she's willing to receive. However, when it comes to talking about the situation, she'd rather avoid the discussion naman. So, next is the railway situation. So, kay ba naman tawag sa railway situation na for sure we have seen it on TV naman. So, railway situations serve as a backdrop for Hemingway's story to represent an important decision to be made, much like a crossroad in other stories. Its isolation also reflects the girl's own decision on desperate loneliness she feels in facing the situation, despite the American guy's constant interference. Okay. So, di ba, you have seen railway na. So, kaya wala tagang sa symbol niya na, di ba? So, it's like, the girl is muadto si Jumper, gusto dyan mo straight sa iyang decision, but na-dyan mo interfere dyan ang American guy. So, iyang boyfriend. So, the last one is the landscape. So, in the setting, we mentioned dito na on the one side of the tracks, there was no shade and no trees. However, on the opposite side were fields of grain and trees along the bank of the Ebro. This contrast between barren and fertile land on either side of the tracks symbolizes the ultimate outcome of the decision of the girl faces. So if mo-decide siya i-push through ni Jang abortion, na niya ma-feel. Kasi may itong ma-feel o nata sa kanang lugar na no shade and no trees. Di ba maka-feel tag ang easiness tungod sa sun or tungod sa kainit nga na. So, dara niya, ma-feel ba na niya o ijang i-choose ang decision na magpa-abort or ijang ma-feel na kanang kasi itong ma-feel sa gatong were fields of grain and trees along the bank of the Ebro, which is kanang maka-feel na nga kalimata. Yan na. So, that's it.